safe place to have the hard conversation. We are live on Facebook and YouTube for our fourth, maybe fifth, not sure, episode of the first season of Race Matters, where we talk about race issues, not just in America, around the world, and but primarily in America. And it's a difficult conversation sometimes. It's a sensitive conversation. It's an emotional conversation, and everything in between. Because as we all know, race is just a sensitive issue for all of us because it's been a painful issue in America since America's inception. And so here, we wanted to provide a safe place where we could have differences of opinion and we could come together in love, sharing those opinions so we can grow from it and gain an understanding of one another, because it's difficult to dislike someone you understand. And was that Maya Angelou? Was that her quote? Okay. So, and I believe that. I truly believe that. And I think what separates us is because of the fear of our differences. But with our differences, we're productive. If everybody were the same, we would just all be irrelevant. So we want to have the conversation here so we can grow in love and learn from one another and be understanding of one another's differences and prosper in our differences. So my name is Sharon Thomas, and I am the owner, CEO of Full Life Communications, the media company that this show and other shows broadcast on Facebook and on YouTube. And you can watch Race Matters the first and third Thursday of every month at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with myself and my co-host, Stephanie Mariana and Rosie. They'll introduce themselves shortly. I am a licensed professional counselor in the states of Pennsylvania and New Jersey. So the type of counselor where, lay on my couch, tell me your problems. So if I say that, everybody pretty much understands, as opposed to, like a physical therapist or something like that. So specializing in marriage and relationship counseling issues, mental health, depression, anxiety, and addiction, trauma work, as well as building confidence and self-esteem, and just helping people go from one phase of life to the next phase of life. And I have a lot of clients with anger management issues. Like, America is a very angry country, and we can see it on social media. Everybody's angry and stressed out. So I handle those issues too. So this is a little bit about myself and a little bit about the show. And I'm going to let my co-hosts introduce themselves. Stephanie?
Hi, my name is Stephanie Esposito. I have had 2 careers in the media industries. One as a marketing executive and the other as a TV producer. And I thought it would be a good opportunity maybe to put my skill set to use and give a perspective in discussing these issues and lending some support in moving forward in these positive conversations. And I love everything you said, Sharon.
Thanks, Stephanie. Mariana?
Yes, my name is Mariana Scutaro. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, but also similarly to Sharon, I've done some individual work as well, and currently working with college students. A lot of depression and anxiety and other college stress life, and that's very honored to be part of these conversations with the ladies.
Thank you, Mariana. Rosie?
Hi, guys. I'm Rosie. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I'm a retired utility worker. I don't think I ever mentioned that. I used to repair the phone lines and install the fiber optics and hook up people's computers and TVs and everything like that. I did that for 26 years and retired from that. And for the past few years that I've been retired, I drive for Uber and Lyft. Because of COVID, I've decided to sit back away from it for a while because I just did it to get out the house. But I do enjoy it. I love meeting people. I love talking to people. And I just consider myself a person that gives good advice to young people, especially, when I give them rides and lifts and stuff. And I think I used to get good conversation with them. So that's it.
Rosie, you look like you're on the islands.
Say that again.
You look like you're on the islands enjoying the sun.
I feel like I'm on the islands, man. I feel like it's fun. Come and join us.
We all need that now. The island.
Yes. I would love to be on somebody's island right now.
Oh, yeah.
But we're here. And we're live again on Facebook and YouTube. This is Race Matters, a safe place to have the hard conversations. So if you're watching this show, please like the Full Life Communications page and follow the page. So whenever we're on, you can get a notification. And ladies, if you can do this while I do this right now as well, share the feed. Go to Full Life Communications, like the page, follow the page, and share the feed so it'll show up on your own personal page. And tag your friends in it. Have a watch party, whatever you like to do, so people can watch it now as well as later when they might have more free time. And throughout the show, if you see me looking down, it's only not because I don't want to pay attention, but I'm just, trying to follow if anybody puts any questions up so I can put them on the feed. And so I'm following a few devices, so I have to look up and down. Just don't want you to think that I'm being rude intentionally. You know how the social media goes. You got to play double duty all the time. So tonight we're going to get into a dialogue about things that are going on, current events that are going on as it relates to race with, and you have to be under a rock not to know things that are going on with the Chauvin trial, with the death of George Floyd, and Dante with his murder by a police officer. She thought she had a handgun, but she thought it was a taser. She shot him. And, just different examples like that. And we're going to have a discussion around those issues and how it impacts us. So that being said, I'm going to turn the show over to Stephanie because she's going to guide the conversation tonight. Stephanie?
Thank you, Sharon. There is something I want to start with, and I know we're going to talk about defining a couple of words, which I think will be relevant for tonight's discussion. But before we even move into that, which will naturally move into it, I wanted to ask for now, Sharon, you and Rosie, just a question from your perspective. When a week happens like this, these heartbreaking events, more pain on top of the trauma that your community has gone through with George Floyd, etc., and many other instances, we could name so many, and we're going to talk about several tonight. When you hear it, when you heard, okay, and we are going to talk about the lieutenant in Virginia, that story happened, and then the next day the death happened. What's your first thought, and what do you do? Do you call your family? Do you talk in your community? Are you like, oh my God, does it come up at church? I mean, I'm just curious. I want to hear from your perspective what happens when this shock comes in.
Well, for me, it's not a shock when it comes in because this has been happening since slavery. And we may have, the general public, the non-African American say public, may not have thought that Black people were killed as often by the hands of police, specifically police, because we didn't have video cameras all the time. Now we have cell phones and we can take video constantly. So now, what Black people have been complaining about for generations, decades, centuries, is now being proven with video. But we've been saying this all along. This is not new for the Black community. It's new for, say, white people to realize that Black people were telling the truth all along. But now we have video proof. So I'm never shocked. I can't even use the word disappointed. I'm just constantly saddened, and saddened to the point of tears. I cry often, even having this conversation. It just, it's just overwhelming. I don't know if I guess unless you are African American, you really can't understand the feeling. It's how much more are we supposed to endure, right? And be okay. I definitely believe our mental health is impacted. I know my mental health is impacted. That's why I can't watch the Chauvin trial regarding George Floyd's death, because it's just too much. And I do news on this platform, and haven't done the news in a while for that reason. And and so I watch the news constantly, and we cover everything. But I'm glad I'm not doing the news right now, because I would not have covered the trial other than sound bites, but I would not watch it. And typically I watch everything so I can be up on everything. But it's been too emotionally impactful for me to watch that. Just watching that video initially when he was murdered back in May 2020, just seeing that, and I saw it a few times. I can't watch them show clips of it at a trial and just, whatever. It's just too much. So I feel overwhelmed emotionally, and especially during this trial, because I'm hearing about it all the time. And I believe I shared with you guys last week, I had an anxiety attack regularly after Floyd was murdered, and because I heard sirens and I was out getting meds for my mom, and I just was thinking, oh my God, am I going to be murdered? I mean, and it's unreal, it sounds like, but the reality that Black people live in every day, because I'm thinking, oh God, it's close, it's coming toward me, the police are coming toward me. Now I know I'm not doing anything, I'm sitting in the parking lot about to go in the store, and they were just going about their business, but the sirens, it triggered an anxiety attack because I know what the possibilities are. Being a Black
and
in America.
I was going to ask you that, Sharon, and I'm glad you mentioned it. And Rosie, I'm going to come back to you in 1 second, and then Mariana, you and I will weigh in, of course. But based on you saying, we're not so shocked, and we've known this, and now cameras are making it more real. What is your first memory? And then I want to hear Rosie too on this, of like the police do this all the time. And we're going to talk other race issues later, but specifically to the police and the fear for members of the Black community with just a simple traffic stop.
Right. My brother and my father's no longer living, but they, have told me stories of, recent stories, past 10, 20 years of being stopped right in this development that we live in South Jersey, because of the type of car they drove. Nothing else, but because of the type of, and that they're Black, right? And the type, and stopped frequently in this development. But, and everything always checked out as far as license and no criminal history, all of that. And so because they're Black driving a nice car, and when I was younger, my dad used to told me a story and my mom about him being in the bank, and they thought he was there. He went to this bank every week, the same bank, that he was going to rob the bank because he, a Black man looking suspicious, and someone from the bank, because he went there every week, knew him like a teller. Then they were like, no, that's Mr. Fowler, so it's just because he's Black. Right. And so, my parents, told me different stories like that. I've never been, stopped by the police unjustified. Like I have been stopped by the police for like a tail light out or something like that. So I haven't been just stopped and it was nothing that I hadn't done. Right. But I know of instances of many other people, family, friends, etc. Going back to God knows how long.
You've always heard it. You grew up hearing these
stories. I grew up hearing it, absolutely. And seeing it, seeing the cops and, stop people. But now I might not have known when I was younger what they were being stopped for. Like, was it legitimate? Because it could be, because I don't know why they were stopped, And I'm, you're not standing by listening. Now we're standing by listening. Like, is that what we think it is? Is that real? Because now people are standing by watching.
Right.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Rosie, what just, while we're talking.
Okay. So, well, first of all, to touch on what Sharon talked about, it's a frustration when you see it again and again, because I think my frustration is more that people look for reasons to say that the Black person has obviously done something wrong. They always look for an excuse on what the person did to cause their own death or to cause them to have an attack on them for no apparent reason. And even with that, you all saw that lieutenant, he had his fatigue on and everything. He done nothing wrong, but they were trying to find something. They were just trying to, it's like they want an excuse to cause all of this harm on a person of color for no apparent reason. And you see it over and over again. And the frustration is that when you hear people try to explain why the cop does what they do, and the fact of the matter is they don't explain why they don't need to make that same excuse when a Caucasian person is stopped. Matter of fact, usually the Caucasian person will start an argument and fuss and fight. Now, I'm not saying, please hear me, I'm not saying that incidents don't happen with Caucasian people, you know, too, who get pulled over.
Right,
I'm not
right.
saying that, but at the rate, and because of social media,
Right.
it's like it's hunting season on people of color, especially in the past, I'd say 10 years, since basically since President Obama was elected, because it seems that's when the frustration took on another level. And
Right.
and as for being stopped and stuff, I've been stopped multiple times. I was stopped when I was driving from down south. Our pastor had preached, and it was me and a couple friends. We were in my car. Cop pulled me over, white cop, older gentleman. And the first question he said is this your car? I had a Pontiac Bonneville, a 2000. He said, is this your car?
Wow.
I said,
Wow.
yeah. He asked for license and registration. He had all my stuff. He said, this is your car? I said, yes, officer. I said, you have my information in your hand.
Yeah.
He said, what year is it? I said, it's a
Wow.
2000 Bonneville. Are you sure? I was like, oh, for the love of God, we're being profiled. You know,
Right.
Wow.
That's
I was,
crazy.
as I told you all, I worked for a utility company. I was pulled
Right.
over at like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, because that's when we would start early. This is on a Sunday morning. There are no cars on the road. It was around about, I would say even maybe closer to 9 o'clock. Pulled over by a
Right.
white cop. And he started yelling at me,
He was
screaming at me.
yelling.
Now, I thought I was going to be fine because I'm a utility worker. I figured maybe
Yeah.
he was going to ask me some questions or something. He started
Right.
screaming, told me I should make you leave the truck here. And I was like, what is wrong with
Wait,
you?
what started the yelling?
what-
Just out of
What started which one?
what started him yelling? What was the impetus for him?
He said, now see, we are with our vehicles, we had a maintenance person that came in and did the oil changes, did the registrations, did all the stuff for motor vehicle, all of that stuff. They would do it. Yeah, insurance cards. We made sure we had our insurance cards, but they, you know, they came and gave us all of our stuff. He said that just like the young man that got shot, the 20-year-old, he said the registration little tag on the bottom of my license plate was out of date. And I said, officer, that isn't anything that I handle. That is our maintenance person. He probably has it. He probably just never put it on. Well, you're driving this truck. And I mean, he went off on me.
Right.
He but used a company car.
Huh?
Use a company car.
It was a bucket truck, a Verizon, I shouldn't say the company name, but a utility bucket truck.
Right.
And I started to get out the truck, and he said, what are you doing? I said, you don't want me to drive it, officer. I'm going to go get out the truck. I'm going to go down the street. I'm going to call my coworker, have him come to me. Well, you ain't leaving that truck here. What do you want me to do, sir? I said, what do you want me to do? He said, take it back to where it's parked, and I better not see it back out here. And the only thing that I knew of is he sees a black woman driving a utility truck, and he's just having a bad morning, so he decided to pick me. But you know, it's like, what is wrong with you? Because I, in my opinion, like you, are a public servant. You do it by protecting and serving, and I do it by making sure you and everybody you know has a working phone, has working television, has working things in your home. And even your police department, if something goes out, you all call us.
Right.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be, you know. Go ahead.
So not to sorry, Rosie. I mean, I'm just getting, getting the idea that you've had some experiences where you feel you were profiled, and none of this surprises you
At all.
because you've had the experiences and you were told this occurs. Always growing up, you always knew.
Always
like
knew it. You know,
Yes.
there's something that we have to understand. Social media has taken it to another level because we watched it in our communities. But when you grow up and things happen, it's the norm. So it's not shocking until you see what's happening to other people too, and you see how it's handled differently. And social media has put it right in our faces to a point where you're at the point of saying, I'm done trying to act like I understand why they're doing this. This has got to stop.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's not shocking, but it sounds like every experience, right?
Listen, I cried.
Continues
crying.
to add
Right.
the level of feeling overwhelmed.
But what about you, Mariana? Since you came here at age 11, what is your knowledge of, you know what I'm saying, some of these issues, and when did you start to get aware?
Yeah. So I came here at the age of 15.
Oh, 15, okay.
Yeah. It's interesting because I also didn't speak English at first, right? So it took another 2-3 years in order to fully comprehend like some of the things that were happening. And, during that time, I was, part of a community that was, that spoke Romanian, the language that I knew.
Right.
And it took like getting a bit outside of that community, going to college. But even in high school, as soon as I started to learn a bit of English, it didn't take long for me to become friends with people of color.
Right.
Of course, young people don't speak about it as much as, as I got older and in college, I started to hear more conversations about the topic of race than from, teenagers, right?
Right. Okay.
But ultimately, it took like being part of like the current program where I have a lot more classmates, where many of them have spoken about very similar experiences like that.
Right. Okay.
Well, how about you, Steph?
Well, thank you for asking. Like you were saying, it's more recent that not more recent. It's not like I never knew, but I think the intensity of it because of social media and because we're seeing these videos, it's like overwhelming. And that's why I kind of was even like this week is overwhelming, but I know you've been seeing it so much. And that's also such an important point. That's very sad that there's also a little bit of an immunity. You know what I mean? Like you're not like it's crazy. And I wonder, and my friend and I were talking one night because we were saying, what did that, the way we're like, oh my God, this is horrible. And then we say, what about those communities? My God, they're suffering. And that's why I was saying, what do you guys do? Then is it a discussion sometimes when you see people at church? And, I was just wondering how you coped.
We do talk about it at church.
Is that what you do?
Our pastor talks about it. And we talk about amongst ourselves and in the families, we talk about it. But now I can't speak for other families. I'm not getting on the phone saying, oh, did you hear this? I would be on the phone all day, every day. I mean, because we hear about ones and, what we were doing for this show, how we were inboxing each other, different things. That was like this week. There's so many that we don't even, it gets videotaped, but everyone doesn't make the mainstream media.
Right.
And I see it because I scour the news, and it's like, we could talk about the deaths that happen all day, every day.
Well, exactly. And that's what's newer too. When we talk about media, when we do the show, we'll talk about the top cable news stations as a sample because they get so many eyeballs. So we will use them as references. But the conservative top stage cable, 24-hour Fox, and then MSNBC and CNN are the other two big ones. They are, they're the ones, CNN and MSNBC, and then other left side media is showing these videos more and taking time to discuss the issues surrounding them. We know the right side is bringing up another whole issue. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yes, I myself, it's more and more impactful to me, even though I knew it existed. And how I cope is I talk to my friends who I know understand, and we can't believe it. And we cope because we get our own personal anxiety because we have family members who don't understand. And I wouldn't compare that anxiety to the trauma that your community experiences, but we get frustrated from the level of, even when we're watching it, like my head says, oh my God, this is what they're not seeing, and I get so angry. And I think I said to you, Sharon, sometimes I'll send a video like, you're missing history, and I'll send stuff. But what's even worse than that, and I'll just say this, and there's so much to discuss around it and many other things, like even the communication when I was watching some of Fox's pieces over the past several nights, I mean, they are really just focusing on the violence of the looting mostly, and softening, oh yeah, that's a shame, but, and we know what that does to raising awareness for injustice. Right. So, that's some of my frustrations, and a long answer to the question back at me. So we kind of, sometimes we can't believe why he's not seeing that, so we get crazy in a whole nother area that you don't even, I promise you the people that do understand are trying to figure out how do we get people to not take in that other rhetoric.
Right. And if I'm sorry to step in here.
No,
but
please.
Even if you look at already with the shooting of the young man and the people marching, the first thing that happened was rubber bullets, rubber things, tear gas, and everything that they could use to come after the people who were saying, why did you kill our young little brother? Why did you do this? Hands up, don't shoot. We're tired of this. Yet they had a complete raid on the Capitol and nothing, no rubber bullets, no nothing. And it's coming out a little by little how the people that were in charge made sure that they stifled any kind of military or however they look at it, any kind of police activity. But still, we see the difference in how this march recently over this young man's death pulled out tear gas cannons, canisters, and rubber bullets. And if everybody if those people that watch it continue to say they don't see a difference, they don't see anything wrong, and all we see is these Black people acting crazy, what happened at the Capitol? So why
they're not? That is a whole nother issue. We know that. They kind of lessened that. We're patriots. We know that story. I think we need a whole show on that one, Sharon. But while we're talking about
Stephanie, before you go on, let's read this statement by Sylvia. Sylvia says, even amongst the immigrant communities, there's a major distrust of the police. Not at the same level, but still there.
Wow.
So thank you, Sylvia, for that comment.
Thank you. Yes, and actually, that I think this is a good opportunity to start talking about. Let's talk about the word racist just for a minute before we go back to these examples, because I want to talk about the videos we saw this week and these two events. But in terms of the word racist, because again, it's really being thrown around by the right side, and during these events, that's not what this is, and et cetera, et cetera. So I want to define it amongst us, and then talk about the events. But before I read the definition I pulled, does anyone want to take a stab at it? You don't have to, but anyone? Mariana?
No, I just want to hear what you have to say on it, because
then you can comment, because I want you to see. Right.
Yeah,
do you agree with this? Yes. And I don't know. Okay, so this is one definition: prejudiced against and or antagonistic towards a person or people belonging to a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or is marginalized. What do you think of that?
It's true. It's true. I think when we first our first show, I think that I gave the word of the day, and it was actually on race and race.
Right, you did.
It dealt with race matters, and it's unfortunate because we have a word that describes people that don't like other people of the same race. And when I say that, because we all are of the human race, but because of ethnic divides, then we turn to ethnic divisions and ethnic disagreements and ethnic differences into a racial divide. Right. And it's not.
Versus having, appreciating those differences, like you said, Sharon. It's a different perspective, of course.
Race so anyway, was created for economic reasons, and to subjugate another ethnicity. Why race was created. And the operative words, definitely, that you said in that definition, or minority communities, and what was that other word you used?
Right,
marginalized. Exactly.
It was a good way of,
because
I feel
because the races can't be the dominant community.
Right. yeah, it's antagonistic to, you know,
Mhm.
this. It's,
Yeah, so when people say that, like, oh, Black people are being racist towards white, well, that can't really happen because white people are the ones who have currently.
Exactly, because it's right, that marginalized aspect of it. So that's why, I mean, we misuse the word by saying the marginalized community are racist toward whatever. But again, it's a misuse of the word, even though we say it all the time, because of not liking that group of people. Well, you know, we are actually responding to how we are being treated. But yeah, it's the, you know, so it's the dominant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In the case where Black people are responding in this way, it comes at a place of finding safety and protection, right? In a community that understands you, right? So Black churches or Black colleges are meant to be there to be a safe space.
Right. Right. Exactly.
And
Because we
people have to
had a safe
understand.
space.
And people have to
Community.
understand that when Black people fight for equality and things like that, we're not being angry. We're not angry. We're not just being vicious. We're not angry. We're just tired and frustrated. And a lot of people, when you speak out, and when I've had so many people, not so many, but I've had people question me because they feel that I'm being a racist because I stand up for the wrong that is done to my people. And they were like, well, you sound like a racist. Well, then guess what I'm going to have to be, because all I'm saying is that young man could have is in my eyes is my nephew.
Right. That's the understanding.
That's my nephew.
The lack of understanding. Right.
Yes,
that's what's missing.
And when I argue and show my frustration that another one of my young nephews, nieces, whoever has been unjustly detained, killed, or whatever, then I'm being overly racist. I'm going too far. Now I'm seen as being racist. And it's just, you can't win. Being Black, you can't win. Either I'm racist because I stand up for the Blacks, or I got to be on mute all the time, or I'm angry. It's just,
I understand. Don't give up yet. All right, that's what we're hoping to accomplish, to, you know, enlighten and bring people together and really sensitize people. I think that's a big issue. There's people you'll never be able to persuade, but a lot of people, you know, it's like one of the newscasters said, there are the liars and the lied to. And I do think there is a component here, when half the media, or the one big media, is communicating to half the world that this isn't a big deal. That doesn't help either. You know,
but I'm curious to hear from Sharon and Rosie on this too, right? What is it like when this conversation is being brought up, that some of it is based on ignorance, on fear, on people not knowing? Does that feel accurate for you, or it feels more like, what's your experience with hearing that?
Hearing that from white people?
Like the white people are just not educated on this, right? Meanwhile, they've lived in the same country, right?
Yeah. It's frustrating for sure. You know, and you know, it just depends on maybe who I'm having the conversation with. And so sometimes I might be, I think I try to represent myself as understanding no matter who, but just say after I leave their presence, like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, why? Or they're just questioning, or just the frustration, even though I'm trying to be present with them to try and be understanding and maybe bring them forward. But then when I again step away, I'm just like, here we go again. Like you said, we live in the same country. And I just posted a question. I'm just going to put it up. I'm sorry, Mariana, it's going to be in front of your face. But it's the same thing. Why is it so hard to empathize with someone other than those who look like you? And so that speaks to what you're just saying. Sometimes I think, like, do you have to look like me to empathize to empathize with my brothers and sisters who are murdered? So just imagine if it was your nationality, your ethnicity, then you would feel differently. Why can't you empathize when it's not yours? Because we're all human. You know, what affects me affects you. What affects you affects me. And today it might be us, but tomorrow it could be you.
Right.
So we're fighting for equality for everyone, not just for Blacks. That's the thing. And when we join together, we win. All of us win.
That's exactly right. They don't understand the one side, that it's almost like we are a body. I mean, this is a state, and it's like the left arm is hurting. It's like, that doesn't matter. We don't need the left arm. You know what I mean? Like, there's no
Right, right.
We are a one body together, the whole melting pot in the country, and it would be better for everybody if they would understand this as an issue, but they don't even see it that way. And based on what you were just saying again, Sharon, why can't people empathize?
Mm-hmm.
I was actually going to get to when it says prejudice with the racist description, the definition of prejudice, having or showing a dislike or distrust for a person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think distrust is a key word.
Right.
You know, that being said, it's to what you're getting at. Why do they distrust, you know, your community, a certain group, or these certain people who are profiling and stopping for these tiny things?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts? I mean, this is a big.
I think it's, you know, it's been a part of the system for so long, because remember how we talked about policing started back in slavery, so this, you know, to catch the slaves who were running away, and then for immigrant populations who were coming to the United States. So it's already bred in that don't trust these people, right? You know, they're first of all, you're trying to run away, but then that would not make us money, you know, right? And if you're, you know, you're coming here to do bad things, not just to just say for immigrants who you know, coming in, not to just so they can have a good life, but you're coming here to do bad things to take away from, to take away from us. So I automatically have a skewed opinion of you. That's not even true. Not saying that there's some people who don't take advantage of. We know that there's ilks like that in every walk of life, right? So we are trained in this American society to dislike people of color, and specifically Black people. You know, this conversation, dislike them, and how we're portrayed in the media. You know, they're criminals, they're this, they're that. You know, so fear them. You know, it's constantly put in our face in the media, right? Well, how many times do you see something positive about Black people in the news or in the media or on shows, right? TV shows, movies, or whatever. Now it's better, but look at all the years where Black people only lived in the ghetto, in the projects, and they were criminals, right? It's like, I didn't know anybody like that, and I'm Black, you know what I'm saying? But that was the representation in media. So it, you know, and it does have an effect. The more we were indoctrinated into a way of thinking about a group of people, right? And then, you know, training.
Right. That's kind of what I think, because we're seeing it over and over again, this behavior, the same behavior amongst these different states and different police stations. There's an attitude thing happening.
Right. Right.
And I just wanted to make a comment on when Mariana asked that about.
Yeah, I wanted to hear you.
There are times when like there are conversations that I have with both I don't want to say both white people. I meant white people, that you have two perspectives. Those who are angrier than me at what they see happening, and they are more frustrated than me. And you know, if given the chance, they'd be out there fighting and scrapping for what's happening. But then there are those who seem like they're trying to defend what's going on, not because they want to defend any wrongdoing, but they might feel that the conversation is saying all of you white people are this way when we're not, you know. And when you try to have the conversation with certain people, they don't hear you. They just quickly start defending or finding a reason to either defend the wrong that was done to the person, or to explain why it happened to that person, that the person who was wronged because of something they've done. So a lot of there are times when I talk to people, and like I said, I think an automatic defense mechanism jumps up. It's like that fight or flight situation. You're either going to run from something or you're going to fight, and that's the same thing that happens with them. They don't hear that you're saying, don't you see this is wrong? They're here saying, yeah, but I didn't do it, you know. So they're defending. It's more like they're defending instead of trying to say, oh God, this is really
wrong. But isn't that similar to the police whole thing, right? There's a few bad apples, right? Instead of recognizing the systemic racism that happens.
that is what's happening. While we're getting into the specifics, let's talk about some of these cases and hone in, starting with the lieutenant in Virginia. The whole event itself is outstanding and memorable and a shocker to me, and atrocious. Within it, what parts of the video are, standing out to you the most? Anybody?
For me, I think the telltale of the whole thing was when the police officer was standing in back of the vehicle with that lieutenant and was trying to wiggle his way out of what he did wrong by saying, if you don't do anything, then we'll let you go. So that the whole thing was disgusting. It was disgraceful. But the thing that stood out to me was when that cop was trying to backpedal.
Me too, Rosie.
At the back of that vehicle.
You said the one of them. There's several. That one was hard to stomach.
That did it.
And what do you guys say? And again, I should have said, I'm for those who might have missed the video, it's the Army lieutenant who was stopped at gunpoint and pepper sprayed. So just to refresh everyone's memory. What do you think, Sharon and Mariana? Did you have specific moments that?
No, it was a lot of the minimizing, right, of the experience and the narrative, how the difference in the narrative, right, than what would have happened if this was a person of a different color frame.
Right, but in the video itself, I'm saying what we looked at, right? So you're saying, so what stood out? Is that what stood out? That this wouldn't have happened? Sharon, any other?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you wanted Mariana to clarify.
Thoughts on how it went down? I just said.
I just
standouts in the video.
What stood out to me was what Rosie said, but also too the officer who was not the one who was speaking loudly. He seemed uncomfortable. And not quite sure like what to do, and but just being obedient to the officer role and playing along basically. But it seemed like he was trying to assist, because the guy was saying, and I'm paraphrasing or whatever, they told him to take the seatbelt off, but he's keeping his hands up because because if you reach for anything, you don't know what they're going to think. And so he's, the seatbelt, take the seatbelt. So maybe the other officer was going to try and help him get out of the car, take the seatbelt, but the other officers wouldn't let him. So I'm seeing a dichotomy in the policing, right? One kind of going along, but maybe not wanting to, or trying to diffuse the situation somewhat. But I'm still a police officer and I got to go home with this guy, back to the precinct with this guy. You know what I mean? So even though I'm kind of feeling uncomfortable, this might not be right. But I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. So I saw that really stood out to me, that, the policing issue is the issue.
So I agree. One was a little uncomfortable, unlike the George Floyd other additional offer, or they didn't to me. One did ask a question,
right?
But
and he was a trainee too, I think, the rookie at the George Floyd one.
Was he?
Yeah.
So that's a question I have now too. What level of culpability do you think the officers that don't do anything have? Anybody?
Well, we've had past experiences where and it's mainly like that black officer when she was, if you intervened and one of your coworkers doing what they felt they had a right to do, then you stand just as much of a chance of being disciplined as the person would stand getting shot. So
what a hero he was.
So you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't. So you're going to be darned either way. So
and the blue wall of silence is real.
The blue wall, the blue wall.
And people other police officers get blackballed within the police community. If they speak up and they say something. So even the good ones are caught I don't want to lose my job or not get, certain, going up, the ladder and things of that nature, or being put on, some duty that I don't like, because they're going to speak against an officer, you know what I mean, who did something that you thought was, they get punished for it. And so that whole community, police community, needs to be just like any other system in America, needs to be gutted and redone. I'm not talking about people losing their jobs. I'm just saying it needs to be rethought. Because remember, it was built on racist ideology.
From the beginning.
From the beginning.
Everybody.
Right? And we know a lot of police officers, it's generational. Grandpa, dad, son, nephew, they're all police officers. And they come from a mindset that's handed down from generations. So we can understand, right, why many police officers, not all, may have this thinking, because it's generational and, again, built on racist ideology. So it's no wonder that these things are happening, and why, and how you find KKK members in policing and in corrections, a national, white nationalists, and other people who are just prejudiced and racist. In military corrections and military, because we were just talking about that, maybe behind the scenes, and how some of the domestic terrorists, right, have a military background, right? And so unfortunately, a lot of people with that mindset go into the military. So policing, corrections, and military. I mean, these are the people who carry the guns, who are supposed to enforce the law and protect us, but they've got a personal bent, whatever, against segments
and
of society.
The trust thing.
True. I mean, one of the other cases that recently came up was the young man in a neighborhood that was, thrown out and told, like pushed and told, you're in the wrong neighborhood. That was a former soldier, right?
Yes.
And on the opposite side of that, I've seen research that's been done on like peer-reviewed articles that highlight that when Black officers are going together to house calls and such, there's a significant, much less likely to be turning violent in some way, like for the police to do something to be violent towards people of color if there's a Black officer going along with like a white officer.
Right.
I think it's just the aggression I find shocking. Like they're screaming at him and
right.
What the
was that necessary? Was it necessary?
It's such escalation, and it's in everything we saw. All these videos out of the 3 that we're kind of talking about, we didn't get to the right one yet, but it's this aggression that starts out chaos, and to pretend it doesn't.
And if you remember, the lieutenant said, "I'm scared." And what did the cop say? You should be.
You should. Exactly. And I want to just say one thing, finish on that note, Rosie, that you had brought up at the end when they're like, "Hey, you're not gonna." My friend and I were talking, and we thought, my God, this poor guy. Then he has to withstand that baloney. A white person would have been like, "You're getting sued.
Yeah.
Your ass is," we would have been. So excuse my.
Right.
Because it was so atrocious, but he had to fear for his life, and that's what and he handled himself. I don't know if you saw the article. His military sergeant was like, "We are so proud of him," because he was so calm. He managed it. Like he had to fear for his life, and it's true. Saying the wrong thing. He was very composed. I thought that was heartbreaking. In a different than everything.
Definitely gone a whole other way.
Right, exactly. Like he ran down. He escalated it.
And I'm sad to say, but I think that I just feel that cop wanted him to do something. He wanted him to give him a reason. It just seemed like he wanted that Black man to give him a reason, and that could be, whether we like it or not, that could be because of the present mindset. We don't know. I'm not saying this is so, but we don't know if that guy is QAnon. Because the uniform does not depict who you are. And that guy could have been part of QAnon. He could have been Antifa, or he just could have been an angry man. But we don't know who's pulling us over today. And some of them, if they are a part of, if they are part of any of these, then they want to score.
Right.
So
That is
don't
very
know. That's
scary.
what's so frightening for Black people. You don't know who's pulling you over and if they've got a score to keep.
Right. Well, and on that note, look, I know that we don't have a lot of.
Can I read Sylvia's
yeah.
post again, Mariana? I'm going to put this over top of you. Sorry.
Okay.
Sylvia says systemic racism requires a complete 180 to build back better. Go ahead, using Biden language. And that can be a short-term pain. We build these systems we can rethink, redesign, and create it more, what does that say? More equally and just, especially for communities who have been targeted unjustly. Great comment, Sylvia. And I totally agree. I think every one of our systems, our education system, our penal system, which is criminal, justice system, our policing system, every system needs to be overhauled because every system is racist in America. There's systemic racism in every system that we have.
Yes.
Economic system. Everyone.
The police system, especially, is creating a lot of controversies here too, because of the defund, which is a question I have for you. Do you think the defund police word is a hindrance to the effort? I do too.
It is.
They could have chose a better word because they don't mean defund.
Exactly.
We read what it's about. It's not a defunding. You know what I mean? They actually need even more money, but we're going to allocate some funds towards some other things. So you can say, get a mental health professional to go along with you when you have a person with a mental health issue, since they are the expert in that area, but you are to protect and make sure everything goes right. You have, so they're real allocating funds. So actually probably would need more money. I think the defunding, they've done themselves a disservice by using that, words matter.
Yes, they do.
And people are going to latch on to that, even though they may read and know the meaning, but they're going to latch on to that and make it a political issue to run against.
Which is what they're doing on the right side. It's this big fear. And just quickly, that's what's so scary. Their quotes that they display, law and disorder. That's what's being communicated. The police are being defunded. They're comparing it to crime rising. They're using very limited analysis done at Fox News. And it's like they took 2 states and said, the crime rose. You could throw in so many other variables to dispute that. This was a crazy year. There was crime everywhere for many reasons, not because, something was defunded or funds were taken away. But anyway,
and it's intentional. What they do, Fox News and them do, it's very intentional.
It is. And that's what I'm saying. Like, even to give that word, just change the word at least, because it gives them more ammunition to do that. And in fact, they were talking about that, of course, over the last several days. And I liked Benjamin Crump, Floyd's lawyer. He wants real reform because he said and I like how he phrased it, they're over policing. And that's a great way of putting it, because stopping for tailgates out and maybe no license plate or whatever the heck it is, they're coming in with guns and it's excessive force.
And what did they stop the military guy, the lieutenant? What did they stop him for?
So the military, they didn't see that he had a license. He just picked up the car.
Right, and it was on the window.
His temporary
tag. He was one of those
windows. He didn't have a license plate.
Right.
And the temporary tag was there. You could see it.
Right. So why? I mean, that's what happens with all new cars. Why didn't they see it?
Right. And
so
why didn't they look for it once? They didn't see that.
And again, whether they did or
and especially once they stopped him in the well-lit area. Let's say they didn't see him. Okay, we stop you. Oh, we see it now. Okay, go on. I'm sorry. I thought you didn't have tags. That's it.
Exactly. Right? And here's But that goes back to bias. Like, let's just use even words that the right side can't be like, we're not racist. But let's just say that goes back to bias and a preconceived notion.
Yes.
Want to tackle this. They expected something different They
Mhm.
expected somebody to turn off, come with a gun, run away, do something bad. What are they going in with that attitude for if a
Right.
taillight is out, license plate? That's the mindset, and that's how that woman with Dante Wright.
Yeah.
It's this fear-induced. They go in expecting
Mhm.
something else.
And they
Distrust.
don't go in expecting the same thing when they stop white people, as the videos that we watched
Right.
this week.
Right. We
You
have
know,
that fear.
exactly.
I have to
Even
say,
when the white person has a gun, I can't tell you how many videos I've seen over the years
right,
when the white person
right,
has a gun and they're trying to talk them down, de-escalate. You know, like this one that we saw this week, and the man had a gun and he said, "I'm going to." He told the officers, "I'm going to shoot you." Like, and I'm not saying that the white guy should have been shot. I'm not saying that.
What
But
you
I'm
just
just
said,
saying the
right?
difference in how
Yeah.
they handled it.
They didn't
Yeah,
have any
that's the thing.
bias. Yeah,
I'm not even sure if it's always expecting. I mean, sometimes maybe, you know, if you just don't know or whatnot. But what happened in the cases when the victims that were shot were young children or, you know, young
Tamir Rice.
girl, a lot of, right,
Mm-hmm.
black
Mm-hmm.
girls and black
right.
women that were shot were not armed, were really young. Like, what was the expectation in those cases?
Right.
Right.
So
It's
I
same
agree.
bias.
I don't think all the time that it's an expectation. It's because I have this in my mind
I'm
because
on
I'm
power.
racist. Right.
Right.
I'm gonna
And
show you your place.
exactly. And I have the power, I have the control because I have the badge.
Right.
And because I am a racist or I have these prejudiced,
Well,
issues.
because I don't trust you. I don't like you.
Right,
That's the problem.
right,
And
right.
I think, well, I meant in the David Wright, and I think you're going to be dangerous. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
mean by expectations and bias. It's all part of it. You know what I mean? So you have to be handled this way.
Mm-hmm. And even sometimes, do you really think that I'm going to be dangerous, just like the lieutenant? Right?
Right.
There was nothing saying because he never was, but the police officer remained escalated. It's because he can, and he
Right.
thinks
Well, that's the
and he
power.
knows he can get away with it.
Right.
And because I have this penchant, of say racist behavior or ideology rather, and I
Right.
can get away with it, well, why not? I have a badge and I can do it.
Right. Well, that I would say was Chauvin. Now, would you say that was the attitude with the woman? We know she was culpable with the taser with Dwayne Wright.
I'm
Now,
not
that
so sure with her, but I think with the lieutenant, the military lieutenant,
yes, yes.
guy, I think it was with him.
Exactly.
I have
I
the
think
badge
it
and
was
I can do it.
power.
I stopped you for this. There's nothing wrong. There was nothing wrong. He couldn't let it go. He
Right.
couldn't let it go. And the guy wasn't, being an issue. He
Right.
couldn't
Yeah.
let it go. He could,
It
but
was
he
a
wouldn't
power
let
play.
it go.
Yeah.
Right. It's a power
What are
play.
your
on
thoughts,
both sides.
Rosie?
Well, I just think on the police officer that shot the 20-year-old, like Sharon, I don't want to hold too much judgment against her. I do believe as a training officer, training rookies, you there is no way that you should have mistaken what you had in your hand when number one, the color of your taser is totally different than your gun.
Totally.
Number
Totally.
two, the weight is different, as they said. The weight is different. And number three for
And
me
it's on
is
a different side of the body.
on the difference. Totally, they put them on the different sides of the bodies because
For
they
that
want to
very
make
reason.
sure that you don't
Right.
accidentally
Right.
grab the wrong thing. But the other thing is, you pulled him over because of the tag on his license plate was outdated. But they even did a statement that motor vehicle has sent out letters saying, listen, because of COVID, we are unable to get people's registrations and things done in a proper time. So if you have somebody that has an outdated registration on their tag, don't pull them over. You don't have to go after them because we're behind in a lot of stuff. So
Right.
let me put it this way: you as an authority, you as an officer, you have the ability to say, hey, young man, listen, you need to get this thing updated on your car because it's still outdated. And I know motor vehicle is giving everybody a leeway, but I'm just letting you know it's outdated, honey, and you need to look at it. Why aren't our children talked to like that? Why aren't they seen as the same young men and women that come from your community, and you can't talk to them and stuff? If you're training, the first thing she should have did is showed that rookie how to handle a young person in a good way to make them feel safe and make them feel you're not trying to hurt them. But they didn't just, it just went to another level, and it's
Right.
out of control. And there's
Right.
some kind of, if I'm correct, and we need to look into it, I need to find it again, but there's some kind of protection that cops have, that even if they're in the wrong, they're protected. They can bust in the wrong house, and no charges can be brought against them if they're doing, if they've got a
They've
Right.
had that. That's
There
happened.
are,
many
yeah,
times.
they
there are
have
things like that.
protection,
I
and
know.
that's
in
why they're
place.
not afraid to
Right.
to do what they do, because they know that
Right.
nothing's going to happen.
But I think what I'm trying to say is there's a spectrum of bad behavior in the cops.
Mhm.
There's the power hungry, who really are like, and very, we could say, racist. And then there's the followers, and the ones that are, oh yeah, it's us against you, that take in that energy from the power hungry ones. So that's all I'm saying. Like, is there a way to even break through the ones? Because in the Dwayne Wright situation, I believe that's a woman who has, like, I don't really believe she went in and said, I'm going to pretend to do taser and then actually have a gun. I think it was all messed up, and she was at, aggression, and oh my God. And only because of what she sounded like. I could
How
be
long
wrong.
Has she been on the force?
20, I think
26
years.
years, and she's a trainer.
Yeah.
That's what's
Yeah.
interesting.
See, I don't
And
know.
the question about like
When
turn
you hear-
turning fun off.
Say again, Mariana.
She told him to like hang up the phone, not just put the phone down, but hang up.
Mm-hmm.
because they don't want
There's
witnesses.
too many
They don't want
holes in
anybody
it.
to see or
Right.
hear what they're doing. Right. there.
There's for someone who has 26 years on the force and is a trainer, it
Right.
seems odd to me.
It's very
odd. So I don't know what to make of that one yet. I guess it has to be investigated and more has to come out. I mean, I don't know what more will come out, but there's just something not right with that much training. A rookie maybe, or
right.
someone with like 26 years is a lifetime.
Yes,
Right.
it
on the
is.
force.
Was
and she's a
she was
trainer.
called in? Did she have a drink? I mean, I don't even know.
Right,
So,
exactly.
like, what happened? But all I'm saying is to go in with that kind of escalation, and you're a trainer. That's a
That boy
problem
was
too.
scared.
You can't
boy was
just
scared.
say, if you only say
I agree
everybody
with you.
makes mistakes, does it intentionally, you're not going to, really fix
Right,
it.
of course.
Because some people, they're just reacting. I mean, yes, she's not a very good trainer, but it's just so you do hear the surprise in her voice. It's very confusing.
But let me tell you, you gotta understand. A lot of times when people of color get pulled over, I gotta be serious about this. Your adrenaline shoots up immediately because number one, especially when you know you've done nothing wrong, you didn't run a red light, you didn't do anything wrong, but you're getting pulled over. So your adrenaline starts running real fast. You get your heart palpitating, you're scared, and you might be in panic mode. And these young people are running today because they're scared. And look at what's happening anyway.
But we know there's a possibility that we can die.
Yes,
that's the problem.
Right, exactly. That's the difference. That's what my friend and I were saying. Like, if we get pulled over, it's the difference between, I hope I don't get a ticket versus, am I going to get killed?
Right, exactly. Before we go on, I want to read some of these comments, and again, I apologize, Mariana, that your face is going to be covered. But Danique says what stood out for her was the officer insisting that the lieutenant get out of the car without probable cause. It seemed like a setup. I would have hesitated leaving the car too, she says. I mean, Yeah,
Right.
because he's got his hands out. Look, don't like I don't want
Right.
to do anything, but I want come get my seatbelt. Do what you need to do. I want to keep my hands here, so
It's
I'm not
so
doing
true.
anything. Right?
That's a right. It's a good observation too, because I had wondered that all these times. It's so unfair. Even in the other video you sent, what did I do?
Mhm.
Oh, you get out and I'll tell you. It's like there should almost be a rule at least, because I'd be scared too. That's really on top of everything else.
Mhm.
I felt I was being profiled and then I wasn't told and I had to get out. That is really scary.
Right. And if you all recall with Philando Castile, I
Yes.
mean, he told them, I have a weapon in the glove compartment in the car, and his hands were up, and he was doing everything. This is the one that just took me over the top,
Yep.
and they shot him anyway.
Right.
And that, I mean, because his girlfriend was right there and she was recording. You saw him shoot, just like you saw Chauvin with his knee on his neck. You saw that killing happen with Castile. You saw it, and it was just devastating. And he was complying. He let them know there was a gun in the car. It was registered.
I
His
know.
hands were up. He was killed anyway. But we
Right.
have a comment and a question from Chad. Chad says, has anyone been stopped by cops when you were with someone of a different race? Were you treated differently? Does that ever happen
Yeah.
to you, Stephanie or Mariana? Good question, Chad.
That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say something not in the car where I've been treated differently, but
Mhm.
where I have gone to a restaurant, and this would be, I remember a couple place or two in the early years in New York, in one certain area that I thought they were very nice. They were friendly to me, and I had gone in then with a black friend, and honestly, they were not so cozy. They weren't, me. They were just it felt a little elitist. I'm not going to say, but so yeah. In answer to that question, I felt like I was treated differently because I was kind of slobbered on prior to. That was the
Mm-hmm.
difference. It wasn't like it was so rude, but
Right.
I was coddled more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
that would be debatable to some people, but
Mm-hmm.
that's what I feel. Anybody
Right.
else? That's a great question.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in a car, like that's the thing. We oftentimes meet with friends like out at a restaurant, right? Then we drive in separate cars. So I don't think in that
Or any other situation like
not another situation. Um, I don't have like a specific example that comes directly to mind, but I do like have stories of friends of color, and things that happened to them in similar settings, right? Like the response other people had, and I knew like that's not how those people interacted with me, right? So it's like experiences with the same people that mine are very different.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to like being together at the same time, like a lot of my interactions have been in like academic settings too, Sharon's, and then
Mm-hmm.
like going for coffee and things like that afterwards, and they usually end up being like in the city or something like that. Yeah, so nothing that comes to mind right now.
Well, I've had instances, of being followed in the store, and like, of course, stores are full of all kinds of people, but like, why are you following me? Why are you
Right.
following the white girl? Why are you following me? You know what I mean? What do I?
Right.
Am I different?
Right.
Do I look like I'm going to steal something? You know.
Right.
So examples like that. Never, I never had a car situation.
You felt
Um,
profiled in
mhm. Yeah,
shop
I've been stopped
and
legitimately, like again, backlight out or something like that. I've gotten stopped twice in my life. So, and it was legitimate for something where I need to
right.
get fixed in the car. So, I
How
have
about,
no experience. But again, my brother and my father have stories,
I was going to say, so they probably have their stories. Is
Oh,
that the same,
many. I've heard
Rosie?
them. Yes.
Parents, they
Mhm.
tell
I'm
you.
sorry, what?
Do your parents tell you stories, Rosie? Is that
Well, no, my
how
mom was
you
a
hear things?
quadriplegic, so she couldn't tell me any stories. My dad, I met him when
Oh,
I was older, so, but my experiences that I've had have been my personal experiences. I've had my brothers. They've gotten. I mean, you hear the frustration, because you hear your brothers say or your sister say they got pulled over for no reason at all.
Yeah, right.
Even with me, I had a situation where my license plate was covering part of the state of New Jersey, and I've never heard of it, and frankly, I actually thought the cop was going to say, "Hey, ma'am, you need to get that off of there." But no, I'm giving you a ticket, and why do you have air freshener hanging on your mirror? And I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" And I was like, this, and you can't say that I did anything wrong because the cop was behind me at a red light. And as soon as the
Right.
light turned green, his lights came on, and I got pulled over.
Right.
And so I've had my own personal experiences, and it's just, and again, you automatically get scared because you don't know what the intention of this cop is, and you automatically get afraid. And again, like I said, I understand why, especially today, these young people are running, because they're seeing their own kind being gunned down, and it's like you're being hunted.
Right.
Yeah, you don't know what the end result is going to be.
You don't know what the end results.
That's what
fear and panic ensues.
That's what Crump.
How could you not?
Yeah, it's the of force that is such, oh no,
right,
and racist behavior as he was describing it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course it is to these groups for nothing. And on top of the Chauvin trial, with everything, you think they would have told every cop, don't pull over anybody. Don't.
You would think, at least in Minnesota, right?
2 weeks. Don't pull it down. Nothing.
Something.
Not a speeding. My gosh, that was crazy.
But see, that's where I think they need to reallocate some of that money. They need to retrain. The retraining has to happen. I personally believe they need to send Camden police officers to train people in Minnesota and stuff, because the Camden police officers, they know their community, and they don't. Most of the shootings that might happen in Camden aren't really officer related. It's usually, gang related or whatever. But those cops know the community. They walk up, they know the kids. I pulled up at police officers in Camden. They had stopped in Mr. Softy's truck. The kids were getting out of school, and the police department was paying for all the kids and their parents and stuff to come to the truck and have ice creams.
Rosie, that is amazing. In fact, I was actually going to ask you that, but I kept thinking we ran out of time, Sharon. But since we're continuing,
continue, Stephanie. You're good.
Wrapping up. I was waiting for but that is actually, and then I didn't want to put you on the spot, but since you're from Camden, I've seen a lot of articles about that and how they took those steps, and there's been such change in Camden. Of course, it's getting debunked by the right side. They're saying it's from something else. I don't believe that, because that's what I heard, that there's practically picnics together.
They do cookouts too. I mean, I have the lieutenant's card because I got his card from him. I videotaped it. I put it on Facebook when it happened, and I was there. I said, oh my God. And he was like, yeah, if you want an ice cream cone, says, come on and get it. They had cases of water they were handing out to the people.
That's amazing.
And if I find my video, I'm gonna send it to you ladies.
Yeah, do. I'm surprised that's not on the news, because there's such controversy. Again, they're using it politically. Oh, defund, that's terrible. It's going to be all this awful stuff. There's going to be more crime. That's not it at all. But there are positive examples where making those reforms did well. And other, I think, stations should study what happened in a place like Camden. Go ahead, Sharon, were you?
Yeah, well, I was reading Denise's comment. I'll put it up in a second, but I wanted to say, let's backtrack a little bit with Camden. Because I think this needs to be said. Camden Police Department was, and Rosie, you can speak to this, was very corrupt and had a lot of issues, right?
Yep.
And it was taken over by Camden County.
Yes.
Years ago. So the county came in.
Okay.
And took over the police department. That's when things changed.
And
Okay.
and it changed because they said they wanted more of a community
Mm-hmm.
interaction. And see, there's where the difference is, because what they did is a lot of the officers, they decided, listen, y'all got to walk the beat, you got to this and that. And
Mm-hmm.
that built a relationship. Again,
Right.
we started doing stuff. They have
Yeah.
cookouts, they do stuff for the communities.
Mm-hmm.
So people, and I've seen it, I've watched it. I don't know if other people have their own opinions, that's fine. But I've seen people run up to cops. Yo, officer, because they're not afraid of them. Because
Right.
they know
They
Yeah,
built a
that's so cool.
relationship.
yes,
Exactly.
not only do they look
God,
like
that's
me, but when they come up in here, they always giving me advice and talking to me and this and that, and we're a community, and
that's what it needs. And again, we'll talk more about the media on another show. And I keep saying about the right side, but they've been communicating that there's all of this. If we defund, there's going to be so much crime, and all these police officers now, because of they're being targeted, they're leaving the force, everything's a disaster, and then they run the role of how many police officers in the country have been killed. It's everything that doesn't have to do, of course, with the issues, but that's what upsets me so much when I see it, because it stands in the way. People are so
Mhm.
afraid of it, yet that's what they're trying to have, like something in Camden, because the
Right.
community relationships are so important. And that's, I think, what's going to help start to break down some barriers, of course.
Absolutely.
I wish that was more out there in the news. Rosie, I think you should get your camera and get over to the news outlets.
look, I may
Right.
start doing it. I may start going around Camden and talking to the officers because I know a few of them. So
And Rosie, so you could do that during our show, and then
community
we can
outreach.
interview the police officers that you're talking to right on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There you go.
Right. So it's on the spot. You know what I
You know
mean? You'll
what?
be there.
That's a thought. I
Because
think
these
I'm
are
gonna look into
conversations that
that.
have to be had. And
Right.
right. 'Cause
Yeah.
And
I think
maybe,
we
I don't
should-
know, maybe there's a
Yeah.
representative from one of the ones that you might know who might want to come on the show and talk about that.
Yeah, that's a
You
good
know?
idea.
Yeah. That
But
would be
here's a comment
great.
from Danique, which is why I, chuckled. She said, I was stopped so much in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, that the officer and I became friends. Oh,
That's
my
different.
goodness.
They're probably on a first
Community
name
relationship
basis.
builder.
Well, I'm sure.
That is hysterical.
So, yeah, unfortunately, but yeah. So, Stephanie, did we talk about the officer who 15 years ago intervened
Oh yeah.
with
The woman, yeah.
okay, go
Right.
ahead, you can
So I'll just give the quick recap, and then you guys jump in.
okay.
I had just seen the article. I don't know when you saw it, but given everything that's been happening, thank God she got vindication, because years ago she stopped a fellow officer from a chokehold that she thought was
Mhm.
killing a suspect. She forcibly used her body, and she was punished for it. She was fired. She
Didn't
pension.
give her pension.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, they back to what we were
Yeah.
saying.
Mhm.
Stand up. Do not look what happened. And what a brave woman. A brave, especially
Right.
a
She
black
jumped on a
woman
male officer.
Yeah.
years ago. Right.
And you
Black
know,
woman.
her
Mhm.
Carol Horn, but see, and she actually started. Now, of course, y'all didn't see this and that but I remember, watching the video and stuff like that and seeing what
I saw it.
she talked about. But she talked about how it actually started in the house when that cop was abusing the man that he was taking out to the car, and he was handcuffed and he was hitting on him, and he was starting the abuse in there, and she followed him out to the car, and when she saw him do the chokehold, that's when she jumped on him to say stop, and he punched her right in the face. I don't know if they mentioned it on there, but he punched her in the face, and she tried to get disciplinary actions against him, but instead she was disciplined. After 2 years of fighting it, then they fired her, and she lost her pension and everything, but he clocked her because she tried.
Wow.
She was pulling him off of that man.
Unbelievable.
And so now she has been vindicated.
Yes.
And the judge has even said, because of the Floyd case,
Yes.
and it's where we are,
Yep.
that she gets all the back pay that she deserves for these 15 years. and her pension. And the police officer that she jumped between sued her civilly and won, and she had to pay him $65,000. So I don't know what happened to that part, if that is null and void now, because she was homeless. After that, she was homeless at one point, living in her car.
Wow.
Working odd jobs.
So sad to stand up for your ethics.
Exactly.
But it's come back, thank God.
Absolutely.
Right.
Wow.
So we see how.
We need more.
Go ahead, Mariana.
I was just saying, for more people to gain the courage, white people, to do that, right?
Right. And this woman was black.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That intervened.
Yeah, she was black.
And but you see, as we talked about earlier on in the show tonight, how she was blackballed, fired, and all of that for doing the right thing.
Right, for doing the right thing.
Right, doing the right thing. That's how solid that blue wall is.
Right.
Right.
Everything's the scare tactic. Right. If you fear system,
right,
that's really scary, and that's what I'm hoping. I mean, even in the Chauvin trial, that was a big deal for the chief of police to be so specific and vocal. This officer, thank God.
Right. So Patrick and I on the other show, our news show, had talked about these retired police officers, I believe from the NYPD, black police officers. Now, because they retired, they can speak more frankly about, not being able to say anything or do anything to prevent some of these things while they were, active duty, because of, what they would suffer, within the police department if they spoke up and spoke out about certain things.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Sharon, because I was going to look for the video that I watched years ago, and it might have been 4 or 5 black officers and one Hispanic officer, and they were being interviewed, and they were talking about, from NYPD, and they were talking about the racial division that's in the department, and how you as a minority were made to keep your mouth shut. It's I know that this is going to sound harsh, but it's like how slavery was back in the day. They would get certain slaves to beat and whip other slaves so that they could let everybody know that I'm controlling all of you all. And you may not have wanted to do it, but you did it because your master told you to. Well, they're doing it because their upper levels are telling them this is what you do, and you keep your mouth shut. And
divide and conquer.
They felt they had to follow order. And once they started speaking out, that's when, like you said, Sharon, that's when they were retiring or leaving the job and speaking out, because they knew they couldn't do it while working there.
Right.
That it takes that.
I want to ask you throw out one other thing while we talked about all these examples, and the Rodney King event back in 1990. They had said there were some reforms at the time in the Los Angeles Police Department. Again, just a quick recap. I'm sure, Rosie, right, about that story years ago. Mariana, we started to inform you. You're a little younger, maybe weren't here, or no, you were here. But it was when he got caught, the police beating him back in, I think, 1991. Somebody was videotaping from the top, and then all the riots across the country. And apparently they put a lot of reforms in place, and they had federal regulation. And they said that it was effective for a long time. But I was wondering if you had heard anything else about it, and specifically that the regulation was removed. Apparently Trump had removed some regulations in 2017 on police stations, because they were saying we complied, we're good, we've changed, so they didn't want to be regulated anymore. I don't know what if that has any effect or if it was okay, but that's a question that's debatable. Should that be part of it? Should there be federal regulation?
Absolutely.
That's part of it. You think so, Mariana?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, how so? What do you think? Just out of curiosity.
Well, I think ultimately, right, even conversations like that are very helpful, but it has to come
Right.
down to regulations in water for there to be consequences, right? When things
Right.
like that happen or in water, for like real shift to happen, it has to come down to policies and laws.
Right.
So I think this, yeah.
And you
Yeah,
know, it's just like I had mentioned, where there's a protection where officers can do things and they're protected. They're, you know, I think that should not be anymore. I mean, there are plenty wonderful, awesome, unbelievable cops out there, but
right.
those who intentionally do wrong, they should be held accountable. Because let's face it, if I
Exactly.
accidentally kill somebody, me accidentally killing somebody does not negate the fact that I will be charged with involuntary manslaughter. It
Right.
does not negate that fact. So if
Right.
you unintentionally, as an officer, killed an unarmed person, you need to be held accountable for involuntary manslaughter. Because the bottom line is, if that person didn't have a weapon, if they're running away from you, if they're laying on the ground and they die in your hands, you were why one of the causes
Right.
of them dying, you need to be held accountable for involuntary manslaughter, second degree
Right.
murder, whichever one.
Which is what this cop is. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, right.
No,
I
Or
think there
not.
should be some
multiple
general.
Yeah.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, I think it's, they were saying she could be held for culpable negligence as one thing.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
heard. I heard. So just say if she's found guilty, she could face up to, I think they said, 10 years in prison or a $20,000 fine. I hear a $20,000 fine coming.
Right. Right. Well,
I
let's,
hear a $20,000 fine coming. It's
And
convicted, you know what I mean?
right.
But
then a lot of people raising money to help her pay that, right?
no,
Right.
could be. I don't know. Probably. But getting back to your question, Stephanie, I think there should be some federal guidelines and guidelines, So whereas they can put some broad language in there, but broad with some specifics, meaning, and I'll just say this, that, there's no, prejudiced, racist, whatever activity, and I'm just saying it like this, in policing regulations and policies that you may create in your own state or whatever, but it has to be free of any sort of discrimination of any kind. And then however that might look. So there's some guidelines I think the feds should dictate on that level, and then the states can then do whatever. But I definitely think the feds need to have some involvement in that.
Force. I agree. I think a checks and balances a little bit, some accountability is always helpful, especially in terms of a group that has so much power. I mean, it's almost like, I mean, look at, that's what we do in Congress. They're making laws. They have power. So we've created checks and balances.
Right.
And I think
I don't think the
a
police should investigate themselves. It should be an outside entity that investigates, whatever happens in there. I mean, that's just silly.
Right.
That's just silly.
And there does,
like I'm investigating my own family.
Right.
Really?
Right.
That's
right.
Right. We can't be impartial.
That's like, I'm sorry to keep going back to the media example, but that's like when Fox News puts up Fox analysis. 10 people were killed, and I'm just like, no, that's supposed to be an outside research study. I mean, I'm sorry, but when you're making claims, I come from two sides, even with the advertising. It was stringent. You can't make a claim, but we're going to talk about all that in another slide. But I'm like, oh my God. I just want Stephanie analysis. Hi, Steph.
Right. Oh my goodness, that's funny. You're right. I totally agree. Well, this has been a great conversation, ladies.
Yes,
Did we get the last question, Stephanie?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I kind of floated off, left it a little more open a half hour ago because I thought, oh no, we're running out.
That's okay.
Cover, some of these pieces, and I wanted to learn some things more deeply about your perspective. I know I understand a lot. I'm close to you, Sharon. You're my friend. So I understand some things from a friendship standpoint, but of course I could never understand firsthand.
Right.
So it's good for us, right, Mariana, to hear
absolutely
perspectives from you guys to maybe help communicate better.
Yeah.
I would like to. I know people that do kind of want to learn and understand, and
Mhm.
it's just political. You know, they're not
Mhm.
coming after that.
Right.
This
And
shouldn't
I,
be political. There,
I don't mind
this is
sharing. I
yeah,
think that sharing helps to educate, people and to have a better understanding of where, maybe the Black community is coming from when they hear a Black person share, on this level, because, they don't have access to,
right.
and sometimes you're just hearing people on, major platforms, and it's like, well, but then we're regular everyday people talking about, yeah, this is, we have
Exactly.
the same experience. They're just more well known.
Well, exactly. And we don't have a political agenda as much as I think the right side would argue that if they were looking
Right.
at it.
Right.
But we don't. It's about, because, righting some wrongs and the
Mhm.
social injustice, hurt and pain that is being
Mhm.
caused in a community like yours. It's
Right. And
unconscious.
righting a wrong is not going to take any food off of your table.
Right.
It's not going to take away
Exactly.
the privileges that you have. It's just going to just bring justice where justice
Right.
was not had before.
And it's just like I heard somebody say, they said, we don't want other people we don't want the cops to treat white people like Black people. We
Right.
want the
Of
cops to
course
treat
not.
Black people like white people.
Right, exactly.
Treat us the same way you treat
Right.
white people, and
Right.
and we
Mhm.
won't hear all of these horrible
Yes.
Mhm.
Like all the
You know?
videos that we watch where,
Yes.
like the white guy told the cop, I got a gun, I'm going to kill you. Right. So treat the Black person like that. He didn't pull out, the cop didn't pull out of his gun. He tried to de-escalate it. I mean, it was a little, whatever, but
And that
everybody
video,
walked away with their life.
and
Yeah.
that video that you sent, he was actually hitting the cop with a hammer as
Yeah.
he drove off with the cop.
Oh,
I
God.
know.
But
I
this
mean,
is
Well, you
insanity.
please just treat us like you treat them. We
Right.
don't want
I would've-
anybody treated like us.
yeah, I don't want the
No,
white
but-
guy to get killed.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait,
Mhm.
it's like,
Mhm.
the comedian Leslie Jones, she put it in a funny manner. She said, we're just asking you not to kill us like you don't kill them.
Exactly.
Is that so much to ask?
Exactly what it
Yeah.
is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a long road ahead still, but the conversations at least are
Yeah.
starting, and
Mhm.
you hope.
So we
The sen-
survived another week. So the defense has rested in the Chauvin trial, right? And so
Can't
closing
watch it.
arguments
I can't
begin
watch it
Monday.
now.
Yes,
So-
Monday.
Right. So by the next time we air, which we air again May 6th, which is the first Thursday of May. So that'll actually be 3 weeks from today, because this month has 5 Thursdays, April. So we won't be on again for 3 weeks. So the Chauvin verdict will more than likely have been handed down by the time we meet again.
Yeah.
So obviously we'll have a little to say about that, and then maybe we'll get to the misinformation.
Yeah.
We've been saying that from the beginning, right? But
we will.
No.
so much has happened.
Actually, these are all good platforms right into it.
Absolutely.
But I think a lot of this
So
was just
overwhelming.
for some of the people who are watching and might not know, right? We had plans to attend certain conversations, and then these major events are coming to the surface that we wanted to address. And we were highlighting how that must be the experience of people of color so much, right? Where you want to focus on your own healing, right? Or move on, where you just barely process one, and then there's another one, there's another one, there's another one.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up, Mariana, because practicing self-care is really important. And it's important all the time, but especially in times of high emotionality. We really, really want to step back and care for ourselves. And like I was saying earlier, how I've been caring for myself is I'm not watching the trial, because that would just be too emotionally devastating for me. And so sometimes we need to step back and turn off social media, turn off the news. The news is very depressing, and just do some things for enjoyment. Do some deep breathing, listen to your favorite music, watch a movie, take a nap, just whatever is that brings you calm and peace. Pray. I pray a lot, and so those things can help keep our mental and emotional state more balanced in this what appears to be such a chaotic and confusing world right now.
Yes.
So, and depressing at times. And then, we haven't even laid COVID, on top of everything, so take time for yourself to practice self-care on a daily, if not a daily, but definitely a weekly basis if you can. So that's our show for this evening. We appreciate you joining us and engaging with us and all of your comments. We will be back again May 6th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can like and follow the Full Life Communications page on Facebook, and we air live on Facebook and YouTube. You can email us at fulllifecommunications@gmail.com, or you can inbox the Full Life Communication inbox us at the Full Life Communications page on Facebook if you have any topics that you want us to discuss regarding race, or any other comments or anything like that, and then we'll bring them to the show, to our next show. But yeah, feel free to send us questions or comments on anything, or if you even want to be a guest on the show because you have information, you have experience, whatever the case may be. We want to make this an engaging dialogue with all of us, not just the four of us. We may be the host, but we want to bring people into the fold because we're trying to really build a movement with this, and it's going to take a while, but the more people who get on board quicker, the quicker the movement happens, and we can get into the details of that as we move along. But we're trying to create a groundswell of having this hard conversation, but a safe place to have the hard conversation where nobody's judged for their experience and their thoughts and their feelings, but we want to grow together in love, and we can do that. We can definitely do that. It's just we just have to have a willingness of heart and a place to do it. So we started with the four of us, and those of you who have joined us here, and those who will continue to join us. So we appreciate you, and we love you. Any parting words, ladies?
No, I just love having this conversation with you all. It's really great, and the time passes so fast.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That probably, since we haven't even gotten to this, the stuff that we've talking about, that just says we probably need to have a weekly show. So maybe one day. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching and engaging with us. We appreciate you. We love you. Have a great night. Have a great 3 weeks, and we'll see you on May 6th. Shalom.
Be blessed.
Good night.
Bye.